Hello everybody, and welcome back to 50 Days to Artfight. This is the second week, which means that there's like 43 days to Artfight? Yeah, I believe there's 43 days to Artfight, and I still have a lot of prep to do, so I guess let's get started. The video that's in the background is me creating my animated PFP for the Artfight, website. Now, originally, I was going to make this video on the TikTokization of Artfight and what that means for the future of Artfight, but Artfight drama is currently relevant because they rearranged the rules, and so I figured I'd talk about it because, it's what everybody's talking about right now. That's right, I am a follower and not a leader. But let's finally get into the video. On screen I will have the things that I still need to get done for Artfight prep, and let's get started. I have 3 different dramas to talk about today from this year and last year of Artfight, and the one that we're going to start with is the new, well, not really new, but the reorganization of the Artfight rules and people's issues with them. If you don't know, Artfight recently reorganized their rules page so that it's easier to read and easier to understand. One rule has been concerning people recently, and there has been a lot of people angry, specifically on TikTok and probably Twitter too, I think I saw. The rule states that you cannot trace over 3D images, pictures of yourself, pictures that you have taken, pictures of other people, and other people's art. Pretty much you can't use bases or trace over photography. Now, let's get one very real concern out of the way. This rule has always been a rule. Even one of the Artfight moderators came onto the announcement page and clarified that this has always been the rule. They didn't change anything. I have seen people go back on the Wayback Machine and read out the rule, and it doesn't specify that you can't use 3D bases, I think, but for my understanding of the rule, I thought that you just couldn't trace over anything, including photography or bases. It does seem like they're going to revise this rule. I believe one of the mods said that they were looking it over in meetings and stuff. And the reason for this would be people with disabilities, some of them can't imagine the things in their head. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's the thing where you can't see pictures in your head, so you have to photo bash and make your own bases. I don't know if I mentioned that, but you can't photo bash either. Okay, I would like to clarify, I'm not sure if this actually is classified as a disability. I just said that because I was thinking of all disabilities, and this was a main focus of why the rule might need to be revised. So I apologize if this is not actually considered to be a disability. Yeah. Other than that, do I think this is an okay rule? Yes and no. See, a lot of people's complaints were that it was pushing away beginner artists, but beginner artists don't have to use bases. I didn't, and I know most people that I know that were beginner artists at one point didn't either. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to use bases. This argument over are bases good or bad has been overplayed and talked through over and over and over again, so we're not going to discuss that today, but I don't think it's a bad thing to use bases. And when I say base, I mean all of it, like the photo bashing and the tracing over photography and stuff. Another factor is, Artfight isn't telling anybody that they can't use bases for the 11 months out of the year that they aren't in Artfight. Artfight is only 1 month. So it's not like it's getting rid of your use of bases just in general, it's just for the game. With that being said, even though Artfight isn't really about the competition, which I feel like we can all agree on that, it still is a competition. This competition gives out points based on effort level rather than skill level, so using a base gives an unfair advantage to anybody who decides to use one. Now, one could argue that it wouldn't really matter if everybody was able to use a base, but at the same time, there would be no extra points given to somebody who didn't use a base. Now, of course, I do think that there should be a middle ground. Like I said, the people with disabilities who can't imagine the drawings should be able to, there should be some sort of way for them to be able to use something, create something. Do I know what this solution would be? No. At first I thought that maybe allowing the tracing of 3D bases could work, but I don't know. With credit to the artist, by the way. I thought maybe they could add a section where you can put down that you traced over a base. But I feel like that even then that wouldn't be fair to those people with disabilities. But yeah. So I don't know, but maybe the Artfight team will come up with something. We'll just have to see whenever they say something about it. Another thing that I'm concerned with is how many people, it seems, just didn't read the rules. Like I said, there was a little bit of a difference between last year's rule and this year's rule, but even so, from my understanding, I always thought that the rule was the same until somebody pointed out that it wasn't. And I shudder to think of how many people have used bases in their attacks or just broken the rules just because they didn't read them and figured that they were, basic art rules. Basic art rules meaning like no, just regular, like no discrimination and stuff like that. I'm not saying that those are bad rules, by the way. I just like they're common rules. Luckily, now we can all just read the rules in a much easier format because of how they've set up the new rules. Great job, Artfight team. So hopefully, more people will read the rules now. Also, I would like to mention that I don't really care about the opinion of anybody who says that you should be able to use things like Hero Forge for your attacks, where you can literally just use the assets already made to make the characters. Because that's clearly just not making an original attack. If I got what Hero Forge is wrong, I apologize. I've never used it. Oh, and one more thing about the rule. I feel like, for the most part, it's just that the team doesn't want people copy and pasting just characters on bases. Because there has been attacks, in like mass attacks specifically, where it just had like copy and pasted of the same thing over and over again, where like you could draw the features on the character and it was just bases. And I do feel like that is a main component of the rule, and then the other stuff was just added on, for formality and because they don't want you stealing other people's assets. Overall, I think that there should be a middle ground so that people with disabilities can still participate in Artfight, but I do think that they should not just fully allow everything that, people are asking them to allow. Okay, so this is kind of like a part B to the last section, because it's still about an Artfight rule, but it's about a different Artfight rule, so I wanted to kind of include it in the same section, but keep it separate. I have seen multiple people complaining that you can't draw canon characters for attacks. If you just heard that, my cat jumped for a fly. But I've seen people complaining that you can't draw canon characters for attacks. I've seen people complaining that you can't upload canon characters as characters unless they're altered to a point where it wouldn't be copyright. My opinion on this is, if you want to draw your OCs with canon characters, or if you want other people to draw your OCs with canon characters, do art trades or commission somebody. Even though some commissioners don't draw canon characters, but that's besides the point. Artfight is, I don't know much about copyright, but they do get money from Artfight because of the donations, and I think that is why they can't have canon characters. But even if they did, they don't, like I said, same thing with the last one, they don't want you stealing other people's designs. And my point again, you have 11 months out of the year to draw your OC with your canon characters. I've seen a sentiment that says that Artfight hates people who like to ship their characters with canon characters, and that's not true. But it's a game, it's a competition. It doesn't make sense to include canon characters in it. I'm not taking this concern as seriously because I haven't seen as many people complaining about it. And also because you can still upload canon characters, they just have to be altered to the point where, like, you can tell that they're not the same thing. So, I don't know. And once again, this has been a rule for at least since last year when I joined. So I don't know why people are just complaining about it now. people were probably complaining about it before, but I just didn't see. But I've seen an uprising of people complaining about it now, and that's why it's even more clear to me that some of these people just never bothered to read the rules, which frightens me. But, you know, it's fine. But yeah, so those are our 2 rules that I wanted to go over, and yeah. Okay, before I start this next section, I want to clarify I do not want to send any hate and harassment to these people that I'm about to mention, because I started with the rules because they're relevant, but also because they don't mention anybody specific besides the Artfight team. Don't send harassment to the Artfight team either. But these next 2, I'm going to be pretty much mentioning specific people, and I don't want any more harassment sent to them because I'm pretty sure that they've both probably already gotten quite enough. Yeah, and I don't condone harassment to any of these people. Just wanted to clarify real fast. The first one that I'm going to be talking about is a very small scale drama. It's kind of a stretch to even call it a drama because it's just not that serious. But if you are familiar with the ice cream attacks of 2025, from Crazy Koala was their Artfight username, that's what I'm going to be talking about. Just a brief explanation, this person on Artfight named Crazy Koala, again, no hate to them, they seem to be a beginner artist, and for Artfight, they were drawing people's OCs as ice cream cones. I'm not going to include any images because I don't want to use anybody else's art or show anybody else's OCs without their permission, so you can look it up. These attacks consisted of a character's head on a cone, like a waffle cone usually. They were very, very simple. Like I said, this person was obviously a beginner artist. And about a little bit over halfway throughout the event, their attacks got completely deleted, besides like 2. And they had like over 300, I think. That could be misinformation, I don't remember. I wasn't really keeping tabs on them or anything. Why did their attacks get deleted? Because they were extremely oversimplified, and they broke some people's character permissions. Allegedly. I know that they were oversimplified, but I didn't hear anybody's character permissions being broken until after it was taken down. So why was this an inaccurate representation of these characters when things like candy, that being like the bracelets, and other attacks that turn things into other characters aren't? That's because the attacks that they were creating were headshots. Now, these attacks weren't turning the character into anything else. They were all labeled as simple shaped, but they were still the character's head, its real head, on top of a cone. So it wasn't symbolizing it in any way, it was just the straight up head. And these attacks, again, no hate to them, they were oversimplified to the point where you could not tell who the character was unless they had some specific defining traits. And I believe the 2 ice cream attacks that got left up from this year both had like defining traits, like I just said. On the permissions thing, it's pretty self-explanatory. There were some people's permissions that apparently said no oversimplifying this OC, and then they, I guess, didn't look, and then oversimplified their OC. So that obviously is an issue. But I also saw some people arguing that only those attacks should have been taken down. Now, do I think that their attacks should have been taken down? Hesitantly, yes. And here's why. In the Artfight rules, it explicitly says that the character must be recognizable. I've seen people argue that people liked the attacks, and that's true, but a lot of people, from what I heard, didn't, actually. I saw a few people saying that they got them, didn't like them because they couldn't even recognize their character, which, by the way, is a valid point. I've seen people saying that, the people who were saying this couldn't complain because it was free art, but that's not really how that works. The permissions exist for a reason. By that logic, is somebody allowed to break somebody else's permissions, but it's okay because it's free art? No, that doesn't really make sense to me. Also, it was just straight up breaking the rules. It's a little bit of a debate whether they were point farming or not. I don't think that they were doing anything maliciously, but they were garnering quite a bit of points just because they had like over 100 attacks. And that could be considered point farming. Now, I do hope that they come back this year, and I think I saw a TikTok comment that said from them that said that they were going to. I do hope that they come back, but I hope that this time they read the rules a little bit more thoroughly, and make more accurate attacks, because to be quite honest, it seems as if they made those attacks really quickly, and I heard somebody saying that they were outputting like 30 a day, but that just from somebody else, that might not be true. So yeah. I've also seen people argue that since Crazy Koala's attacks got taken down, that other people that had similar attack ideas should have as well. But I don't think that's a good faith argument, because they're clearly Crazy Koala's attacks were very, very oversimplified. Again, no hate to them. And these other, people who made similar attacks, like the bread person, actually, one, I didn't hear any of the breaking of permissions from the other people, even though I am sure it happened. And two, they were recognizable to the character. I know that the bread person, I think it was just, the faces of the character, which is a lot easier to make recognizable to the character than the bread. It might have been the hair, too, on the bread person. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at it. But yeah, overall, I do think that this person's attack should have gotten taken down because they are against the Artfight rules. And I do hope that they come back next year, and, maybe if they do something similar, they can take a little bit more time on it. I'm not saying that they didn't put any effort into it. Everybody's level of effort and how they feel about how much effort that they put into something is different. And of course, depending on how experienced of an artist they are, their work will come out different, no matter how much effort that they put in. But, yeah, I feel like there could have been measures taken to make them a little bit more recognizable. Anyway, on to our third and probably most controversial of the three, the 2025 Artfight misogyny video. Oh boy. Once again, no hate to this person. I know that they got a lot of it. But if you aren't familiar with the Artfight misogyny video, last year, I don't remember their username, but a creator on YouTube posted a video titled about something like Artfight misogyny. That's definitely not the title, but that was kind of the subject of the video. But anywho, in this video, they pretty much said that because most people either don't have any female OCs, or their female OCs aren't developed as much as their male OCs, or they don't have their female OCs as high up in their, character list as their male OCs, that they were misogynistic and they hated women. Now, surface level, does misogyny exist in art spaces? Yes, of course it does. Misogyny exists everywhere, and this is an issue that should be addressed, because, nobody wants misogyny. My personal issue with the video was, one, I'm not an expert, but I do believe that their statistics were kind of bad. One, most people don't have all of their characters on their Artfight. It doesn't really make sense to have anything but your favorites on your Artfight, which could be a good, sample, in theory, but the reason why a lot of people don't have their characters on their Artfight is because, one, there's not enough space, you can only have 100 characters, and two, it is kind of time consuming to make an Artfight profile that looks good. A lot of people just don't have the time and energy to make all the ref sheets and fill out all the descriptions and do all of the things that come with making a character sheet on Artfight. I feel like better sites to sample could have been like Toy House or, you know, similar character storage sites. Another thing about the sample is, if I remember properly, how that person you chose what characters to consider female and male. I don't remember exactly, I haven't watched that video in months, but I did see multiple people saying that how they like categorized either non-binary people or some other group was kind of iffy, but I can't confirm that because I haven't watched it in months, and honestly, I don't have the time to go back and watch it right now because I'm pretty sure that video is like 30 minutes. But besides that, my main issue with it is, honestly, it comes off as pretty accusatory and kind of aggressive, if for lack of a better word. There's multiple times in the video where the creator, I believe, just says, "Why do you hate women and why do you not want to write women?" Which is not a way to get people who may not have written women before on your side. So that, you know, it was kind of uncomfortable to watch, and take this with the biggest grain of salt you've ever had in your life. But I remember whenever it first came out, I watched it, and I don't know if you can edit YouTube videos afterwards, but I believe that there was a line that they said if you changed your male characters to female and changed any of their personality traits, that they would shoot you. Now, again, that isn't currently in the video. And of course that wasn't like literal, but I remember it making me uncomfortable, and that's why I do genuinely believe that even though it's not there anymore, I do think that it was at one point. Once again, that could be wrong. Take that with the biggest grain of salt in your life. But yeah. So that was like one of my biggest turnoffs from that video, and I feel like it could be a big reason why a lot of people went against them whenever it did come out. Other people's concerns, and as well as mine, but less mine, were one, trying to dictate like what OCs people have. I personally think that it's better to actually want to draw, not even really diverse because women make up 50% of the world, but you know, that's kind of a similar topic because they also mentioned that how many characters of different race people had, or how many, you know, characters with disabilities people had. I think it's better to actually spend time drawing just one of those things that represents like one of those things, rather than saying you are misogynistic if you don't draw women and you are racist if you don't draw various, you know, insert group here, and you know, you're this and that, and then people want to just make one of those diverse characters that didn't sound good. Make one of those like diversity dump characters where like they just have everything in one because they don't feel like making more characters that are diverse. I know that was long-winded, I apologize, I'm not a very good speaker, but I think that people should be encouraged to learn about these things more gently, if that makes sense, in a way, because otherwise they're not gonna want to draw them at all, if that makes sense. Now, I would like to state I do have female characters, and I do have plenty of diverse characters that I you know, I give personality to all of them. My characters represent everybody from around the world, because like anyone can become a writer, so actually most of them are not white, but that's besides the point. Just a little disclaimer, I do have these things. I'm not coming from, you know, a side of I don't have any of these. Another factor is I feel like people, just for the most part, draw what they're attracted to. And I made a TikTok about this, and I had multiple people agreeing with me in the comments. I feel like, you know, if somebody is maybe interested in men, they will draw men, and I think, most artists are women, just in general. At least most artists that can participate in Artfight are women, from what I've seen. So that is a huge factor in why somebody might pick a male OC over a woman OC. Another thing is that person said that they also had an issue with how women were being portrayed, which is a fair argument. But along with that thing that they said earlier, like if you change one of your OCs to a female and don't change any of the personality, but if I changed some of my OCs to female from male, they would have the personalities that are considered gooner behaviors, or just generally can be considered misogynistic, because they just are mean. They are very promiscuous, if that's the correct word. And I feel like that's something to consider. One more thing before I wrap this section up. I also think that it's okay to only want to draw, people's OCs if they have women in their, characters. I think that it's okay to only want to draw specific kinds of OCs, like only wanting to draw women. There's nothing wrong with that. Overall, yes, misogyny certainly exists in art spaces, but I feel a more calm, if that's the right word, approach to it is best to convince all of the people to actually want to draw these OCs. And I do recommend that you go on watch that video yourself to see what I'm talking about. And that brings us to an end of talking about the TikTok, not the TikTok drama, the Artfight drama over the past 2 years. Please, no hostility in the comments, towards any of these people. At the end of the day, it's just Artfight. And yeah. Time for my small self-promotion bit. My username on Artfight is kinda_timid, spelled Kinda. It's the same as my YouTube handle. And a few things that I have changed. I have my Mass Attack hit list on my Artfight profile right now. It is Ultimate Custom Night inspired, but every OC is allowed, not just FNAF OCs. So go into my Artfight profile and you can fill that out. I still need 42. I do plan to post more TikToks about it, but yeah. Pretty much right now, if you fill it out, you will be, one of your characters that whoever you prefer will be bookmarked. And yeah, so it will be inspired by Ultimate Custom Night, and make sure if you are interested in that, you go join it. And one more thing about myself, because I love to talk about me. This year, I plan to have a revenge preference form on my profile, which I'm actually a little bit excited about. I'm going to have this form on my profile when Artfight starts, and if somebody attacks me, they can fill it out with the type of revenge attack that they'd like. And I'm doing things like headshot animations, which is what you're watching in the background, small uncolored comics, character interactions, lore-related ones. Is there any more? I don't remember. Maybe. And, of course, regular ones, too. But, yeah, so definitely you should consider attacking me because I am awesome! Hello again, even though it's been 0 seconds for you. It's Tuesday for me, and I'm about to upload this video, and it's time for our check-in to see what I have done. So yeah, let's get into that. Okay, so first I did 2 playlists of the characters, then I animated the PFP, which is what you were watching in the background this entire time, then I made the art for the Mass Attack posts, which is both of these, go fill out that form, and then I organized a few character descriptions, only 3 so far, I'll get to the rest, and then I configured some connections. I think I have all of Icehawk's done, which is what I'm showing right now, and I started on Blues. What's next? I'm watching this, I'm voicing this over as I'm looking at it. That's just more, I'm just showing off the character descriptions. This is the form for the mass attack, and then this is the form, my revenge preference form. This is where my lore is. You can see my characters are connected to the world, and this is the massive tome of lore that I have written. Glad that's over. And then this is the, what I have done for the week. I did 2 playlists. I did all the general lore writing, all of the art for the mass attacks, all the, PFP art. I will put out a video, so it'll be 5 YouTube videos, and I have bookmarked 8 OCs. I've done a few more things, like I've configured some connections, and I've done a little bit of lore too, and that's pretty much it. Come back next week, subscribe and like me, whatever it does on YouTube, and that's the end of the video. Goodbye.